Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we survived all the track. Now we have for the end the best. Oh my God. You know, we saved the best for the end, right? And we have one of the greatest presenters of presenting in our conference. And he will talk about very important things, how to become a Jedi. All right, let me present you Mr. David Lee. Hands, please. Thank you.
So after that, just prepare to be like highly disappointed, because that was like the best intro I've ever had, and I hadn't even paid him yet for that. So first of all, welcome. It's Friday, last day of Identiverse. I would be lying if I told you I expected like 3 of you to actually be here on this talk when I saw the schedule. So I had just planned to come and then go to lunch. So thank everybody for showing up. So I actually don't know why you're at this talk, but anyway. Welcome to the final day. This is the final breakout session, right? And then you guys get to go see Wozniak, so cool, you guys made it. We're gonna have a conversation about some things today. I tell you what I do at SellPoint, but I still quite haven't figured it out yet. They just keep paying me, and so I just said, okay, fine, we'll just do that. But I wanna talk about what it means to become really good at doing this thing that we call identity, right? And so I wanted to have a nice little catchphrase and call Identity Jedi, because when I was a kid, I watched Star Wars all the time, and I didn't have friends, so Luke Skywalker became my best friend. So whatever. I had a lonely life, don't worry about it. It got better as I got older. So how many people are familiar with Star Wars? Absolutely nobody. Great. Then none of this is gonna make sense to you. All right, so in Star Wars, there's this group of individuals. No, not the Identity. That's Sarah and Ian in the back. But they were the Jedi, right? And they were masters of this mystical force. They could do really cool things like pick up rocks, and Yoda would say like little funny things that we would all laugh at. But they could do all these really cool things, and they were revered throughout the galaxy, right? Because they were defenders of truth, justice, and they made Superman look like he was a little punk. But they were also very disciplined and wise. And so people would look to them for helping to make sure that justice ensued. So I talk about all of that, and he goes, what does that do with identity? Absolutely nothing. But when you think about that, where's the clicker thingy? Is it gonna work? There we go. Now I went too far. Come back. So, back again. Now we talk about the Identity Jedi. So when you think about it, an Identity Jedi, right, you want to be masters of identity. And I can't promise you that you'll be revered throughout the galaxy, but maybe just the industry. Okay, that one didn't work on you guys either. All right, whatever. But you also have the same thing, right? You need to have discipline, right? You need to understand the different concepts of a very, very complex industry that we work in, right? So how many of us would agree that identity is kind of hard? Right? For you, whoever didn't raise their hand, just get out now because you're lying. This is one of the hardest things to do. And I don't say that just because I've been in it for longer than I care to admit, hence the gray hairs in my beard, but it is really, really difficult because it's not just a technical project, right? There's a lot of things that get involved in it, and so it makes it very hard to be successful in it. If you've been in it for probably about 10 years, you gotta remember when we started this, the success rates of these projects was like in the 20s, right? We would spend millions and millions of dollars and never get anything deployed. And then we go around and do it again. And that's when I realized I am in the wrong business. Can I get in that business, please? Can I please have millions of dollars and I won't deliver you anything? But that's where we started, right? And so we had to start to get better, right? And obviously the rates went up. And so now you kind of ask yourself, well, this sounds really cool. How do I become an Identity Jedi? So fast forward to kill the rest of the talk, you just call yourself an Identity Jedi. That's it. You guys can go home. No, just kidding. Well, there's a lot of things that go into it, right? I would say there's 2 paths. There's both the technical and the business side of it. Because like I said, this isn't just a technical implementation. So newsflash, going and buying the latest identity management tool, whatever it is, whatever vendor out there sold you something is not going to fix your problem. Oh my God, don't sell the salespeople I said that, right? But it's not. Because you have to do a lot more than just buying a tool, putting it in and going, okay, it works now, we're done, we can go home, right? All of our problems are fixed. Because if that worked, none of us would be here. So it takes a little bit more than that. And so I want to go into both of these paths. And as you start to look at it, right, just kind of like the same hierarchy of Jedi Knights and Jedi Masters, you kind of have a Jedi Master that can sit across both, right? And so the whole point to this is that there's a business path that's very important that you have to have, and there's a technical path that you can have. And you can choose. You don't have to do both. But both are equally important. And we don't want to rule out either one. I think a lot of us, when you think about identity, we get into is like, I got to be super technical. I got to understand everything. I got to be like, Justin Richard and be able to do a OAuth masterclass, which I'm still floored by, and I will ask him a million questions after this is over. You don't have to be technically sound in everything. You can be technically sound in just understanding how to run the business of identity. So let's get into that track a little bit, right? So in the Jedi Knight business, you are one with the Force is one with you. There's a couple of areas of discipline that you're going to need to have, right? That's business process engineering, project management, and program management, right? Business process engineering is probably one of the most important ones that I believe, because when you go in and start to look at your total environment and say, okay, we're going to redo this, we all know the phrase garbage in, garbage out, right? Raise your hand if that sounds familiar. Okay? What does that mean? That means, okay, if I take the same stuff that wasn't working for 10 years, put it in a new tool and do the exact same thing, magic is going to happen and everything changes, right? No? It doesn't work that way? No, exactly, right? You have to look at it and say, I have to come up with a new process. And you're going to have to work with your customer, or if you are the customer, work with the rest of your organization to figure out what the new business process is. Right? We're all aware of this. This works in life, right? Just like if you want to go to the gym and say, look, I'm going to lose 50 pounds, and I'm going to do that by eating cookies and ice cream and soda like I've always done. This is not going to work, right? But if it does work, please share that, because I would love to know how that works, right? So let's dive into some of these areas, if the clicker works, or not. There we go. So business process engineering. And how many of you were in the talk just before this one? Awesome, because this is going to be a perfect segue. So I love that Andrew went into talking about active listening and asking questions, right? When it comes to business process engineering on this side, you have to get really, really comfortable asking questions all the time. They always say the customer is always right. If you're a customer, raise your hand. You're not right, you're wrong. I'm sorry, right? Because here's the thing. If let's say you hurt your knee and you decide to go to the doctor. And so you walk in and you go, hey doc, I hurt my knee. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to go ahead and write me a prescription for this, because I feel like I pulled my MCL on this side, and that, about 2 weeks and rest and some medication and I'll be just fine. Now, if you have a good doctor, he or she's going to look at you and go, hey, let me ask you a question. Which one of us went to medical school? So how about you sit down, shut up, and listen, because I'm the doctor and you're the patient, and let me figure out what's wrong with you. And here's the reason why hopefully they would do that, because although you know where the pain is your body, they have studied your body. And it could be something else that could be a symptom that you're feeling in your knee that they would be able to look at and help you diagnose, versus you just walking in and going, hey, I know exactly what's wrong with me, here it is, right? So I take that analogy back to the customer, right? Not to say that we will ever be disrespectful to our customers, but if they're hiring us as consultants or as vendors to come in to help them fix their problem, we necessarily don't want to listen to everything they've already did, because if we do that, they wouldn't be our customers in the first place, right? But we have to get comfortable with asking questions. You ask, you diagnose, you ask again, and then you implement. It's a very simple process. What I like to tell people is you want to ask them why about 7 times, right? But as Andrew pointed out, not in the context of just why, you say, okay, hey, what's your process look like? How do you provision accounts today? Well, we go through this and do this. Oh, that's awesome. So let me ask you a question. Why exactly do you use this process? When did it start? Well, I don't know, like 10 years ago, Jerry was here and he put it all together and then he left and it's all in Python. Cool, no problem. So why do we do these things with these? You keep asking the questions. So that way you can truly understand what the process is and then go, hey, let me ask you something. If I were able to get you the same result, meaning at the end of this process, I give you an account, but I kind of take some of this out, but you still get the same account that you want, would you be open to maybe using a different process? That sounds different than coming in and going, hey, we're just going to throw all this crap out and we're just going to do it a different way. Right? Trust me, I tried it that way. It doesn't work. And the last one there was you really want to focus on the business value with that. So by asking the questions, you understand more about the customer's business. You can unlock their pain points and help deliver that value. The next part of it is project management, right? So I'm going to go back to that stat that I gave you earlier, right? When 20% of these implementations would fail, is because we sucked at project management. Why? Because we wanted to make sure that the customer is always right. And we just say, whatever you want, customer, right? Which means what? Scope creep. Right? And I won't get into debates of whatever style you want to use, Agile, Scrum, Kanban, I don't care, right? Just don't do waterfall, for the love of God. This is 2019, get over it, right? But learn pick your style that you're comfortable with, and then learn how to manage expectations. This is a really, really politically correct way of learning how to say no, right? We're going to practice that all right now. On 3, I want everybody to say no. Ready? 1, 2, 3. No. See, that wasn't painful, was it? That wasn't painful, was it? Active listening, right? You're not engaged, right? And then, of course, in a little, you need to learn how to adjust on the fly somewhat, right? Because things are going to go wrong. You could sit there and plan for months, years, it doesn't matter. As soon as you write that plan down and go, great, something breaks and it fails. So you have to be willing to adjust. But understand that when you're working with your customer, you have to be somewhat stern with them so that way your project doesn't get out of control. That is actually very needed on identity projects because they reach out to so many different aspects of the business. You want to make sure that you have that all managed. The final one is program management, right? So this is a big one, right? Depending on your organization as the size of it, you got to realize that you've all heard the cliches, right? This isn't a sprint, this is a journey, right? This isn't a, hey, we're going to do IM, or we're going to start at the beginning of the year, we're going to end at the end of the year, and that's it. It's all over. No, no, no. Because you're still going to do business. You're still going to sell stuff, right? No? Okay, you guys are just going to go out of business. No problem, you're not going to sell anything, right? But you're still going to hire employees. Well, maybe not if you're not selling anything. But the point is your business is going to continue to go, right? And so as the business continues to grow, as you continue to sell stuff, as technology continues to grow, you're constantly still going to need to prune and maintain this. So you're going to need a strategic plan and a program of how to do this, right? Because you're going to need access management, you're going to need privilege management, you're going to need all these things and something to kind of bring it together. So at this program management level, you have to be really good at, one, selling the value to your executives, making sure they understand what's going on, fighting for budget, but most of all, you have to be very, very good at establishing relationships, which most of us who are tech people and introverts don't want to do that. Our relationship is with our computer in front of us because it listens to us whenever we put in it, sometimes, depending on the application. You Windows users, well, okay. But your whole purpose at the program management is really to obtain buy-in and keep your eye on the big picture, right? To make sure that overall and my strategic long-term that I'm keeping on track with that, right? Because one little project slip up here can't affect the overall project that we need to get to. If I know that I've got a big company and I've got to move and I got to do a migration, that's going to take me some time, right? So I got to keep my eye on the ball, and I need people at that level making sure that they're constantly making sure the relationships are there, making sure the executives are staying bought in, so that way we don't get halfway down the pipe and they go, guess what, we're pulling your funding because we haven't seen anything and we just don't believe in this anymore, because that's never happened, right? Okay, so some of you. The rest of you, I don't. You guys have some great program management because... So wrapping it up, right? The Identity Jedi Knight on the business side becomes a master asker, right? That's what you do. Every single time you ask questions. Anytime somebody comes to you, ask questions. You want to get involved. You want to understand more about it. You want to understand how to show the business value of what you're doing, and you see the big picture. You're one with the business is one with you. You're their best friend. You present to them why identity is important, what it's going to bring to them, how it's going to make their lives easier, better, stronger, faster. $6 million man, anybody? Okay, showing my age, all right. So let's get to the technical side. For most of us, this is the kind of the fun side, right? Well, there's a couple of things on this side that you really want to make sure you master. It's identity modeling, knowing your A's, and data distribution, right? I love talking about this because this is all the stuff that nobody expects to see on this slide. They thought I was going to throw out like SAML or like OAuth, OIDC. I need to know what my governance tool is. All that stuff will come later. But you have to really understand how to do the groundwork first, right? So I call identity modeling like building your identity blueprint. What is my identity going to look like within my enterprise? That's really important. How many of you guys are homeowners? That's awesome. Anybody build their house? Anybody? Okay, great. So when you went to go build your house, what would you have said if the builder came to you and said, okay, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put the kitchen over here, put the bathrooms here, we're going to put your deck back here, and then it's going to be awesome. 3,500 square feet, you're going to absolutely love it. And you go, okay, great. So where's the plan for that? Oh, don't worry about it. I got it. It's all up here. We're good. Yeah, we're good, right? And so builder goes out, hires all these people, they're working, and you come in and go, hey, so you said there was going to be a bathroom. Yeah, no problem. But it's behind the kitchen. It's cool. We'll move it over later, right? The point is you have to have a blueprint, right? How are you going to build a house if you don't know what the plans are, if you haven't taken the proper steps to plan where everything goes? Because key tip, if you want like kitchen and bathrooms, that kind of needs plumbing. So you might want to make sure that's in the right place first, right? You don't want to build a bathroom and go, man, this is a great bathroom. All the plumbing lines are on the other side of the house though. So, I mean, you know, you can just come in here and buckets of water. Does that? No? Okay. All right. It's the same thing when you're looking at your identity, right? You want to make sure you understand the blueprint of your identity. Where are your attributes coming from? What are you going to use for a unique identifier? How are you going to correlate them? Where does that information come from? Because believe me when they say, oh, don't worry about it. It syncs every night. It's been running like that for 10 years. Okay. Except every other third Friday when the executive changes offices and this special attribute comes in, right? That only ever does it the day you decide to go in production, right? You need to understand these things before you start. You want to understand exactly how your identity and your attributes come together. You know, what are you going to use for access? What are you going to use for trigger? All these things are important. These are conversations and things that you want to have before you even start implementing your tool. I don't care what tool it is. You want to understand where this is. You also want to know your A's: authentication, authorization, administration, audit. How are all these things fitting into what you're doing for your IAM solution, right? Now you can dig into some of the sexy details, right? You can bring in Justin, you can talk about OAuth. Where does that fit in, right? If I'm going to have a directory, how does that work? Audit-wise, what do I need to audit? What attributes do I need to capture? You know, for administration, who's administering this? What rules do I need to have? Have all this stuff planned out and talked about. Know what this is going to look like. We always talk about building the plane while it's on the runway. And we laugh about that, and it's fun because it keeps us exciting, but it's also hard as shit. Excuse my French, but it really is, and I don't want to do that, right? You don't want to constantly be building your solution on the fly, right? You don't want to be at the end of the runway and it's getting ready to take off, and it's like, okay, great, pull the wheels up. Wheels? What? Hey, do we need a left wing? Okay, we'll go build it. Don't worry about it. As long as we get it before we land, right? I mean, we don't want to constantly be doing that. Finally, on this side, right, understanding data distribution, right? So let's talk about this, friends. You need to understand where your data is, how it flows, what that life cycle is, and how it's being used. Because your data sucks. It really does. We know it does. We've seen it, right? Because we all go to HR and go, hey, HR, give us the data. They go, sure, here you go. This is accurate, right? Yeah. Why is a third of the company fired? You know, why do we still have executives that have access? Why do I have a start date and an end date and a termination date and a leave date all on the same day? What happened? What is this? Right? Oh, but the data's good. None of this works without understanding our data. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go clean it first. I would love it if you did, but we all know that probably won't happen. But you need to know where these pitfalls are ahead of time. Understanding where all that data is, understanding how it flows. How does it get into Active Directory? What applications are using it? From Active Directory, what does it sync to after all? You don't want to be in production and find out that, hey, you can't change that attribute because this organization over here uses that for access into their app, and you're going to break it every time you change it. Well, why didn't anybody tell me? Well, we didn't ask. Right? You want to be, again, back to being that master asker, but you want to be asking those questions and understanding at least, I would say shoot for 60% of knowing where your data is, right? If you get there, that's good. You're not going to get everything. Stuff's going to happen once you go to production. You're going to find things, right? There's always that, you know, freaking Perl script that somebody wrote that just sits there that nobody knows about, right? That picks up on a cron job on a Linux server every Friday night at 11:59. It's just, it's always there. You're never going to get rid of that one, but at least you have everything else so you can be prepared for it. Right? So in the end, on the technical side, right, you know everything about your A's, your authentication, your authorization, administration, audit. You're the architect of identity blueprints, right? You're the ones that are coming in and understanding this is what your identity looks like in this enterprise, and you're a master of data distribution. You know where the data flows, how it gets in there, what systems it needs to be in, what system it doesn't need to be in. So finally, how do you become a Jedi Master? Like this guy right here. Of course, I'm always humble. Clearly, you don't know me very well. So when you get to the next level, right, you really just want to understand both. A master of both, but slave to none, meaning you understand that both business and technical are both critically important, right? Do you need to know every single detail about each one? Well, absolutely, because I do. No, I'm kidding. But you want to know enough about either side that you can be just as comfortable with the business side and the project management and the program management and understanding the business value as you are with the technical side of digging in there, understanding what your data is, modeling your identity, and being able to get the right tools in place. And then finally, you do things like this. You want to pass on what you've learned, right? And that's part of why, ID Pro is such a great organization as we kind of get this industry together and all these professionals come and we can tell you about all these painful experiences, why we have gray hair in our beards, why we still do it, but we can pass that on so you guys can not make the same mistakes that we have. Because trust me, you don't want to get that call when you go into production and you fired half the company. Been there. I've done it. It was great. CIO loved me after that. Or you can be like this guy. It's a better Jedi Master than I am. Although I will give a shout out to Sarah Squire. She had like one of the best Yoda slides ever. And I'm going to steal that slide, by the way. Just want to let you know. So at the end of it, the Identity Jedi are you in this room who are doing it every day, living it, breathing it. You guys are the protectors of identity. You're out there in the galaxy or this industry, right? Talking with business owners, implementing these great solutions, right? And you guys are the ones that we want to enrich with all the knowledge that we have. Make sure you guys learn all the skills that you need so you can become that Identity Jedi force out there, right? There's going to be Identity. The new generation is going to be Identity Jedi, and you guys are going to have fun doing it. All right? Thanks. I can't walk out speaking.
Questions.
Oh, questions. Oh, shoot.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Jedi or Master or whatever.
Ask me anything. Or not.
Anything?
Anything. I'm telling you.
Come on, don't be shy, please. Anybody? Okay, hold on. I'll get a mic. Heather?
I didn't say I would answer. I just said ask me anything.
So I might have sent this an email, but if I can embarrass you in public, that works even better. So you had a lot of really good ideas that project managers who are trying to grasp what to do with an IAM project really should know. How would you feel about writing that stuff down for the body of knowledge?
I'll check with my agent and check my schedule. No. I will work on writing that down, Heather, and submit it for the body of knowledge. Anybody else?
Anybody else? Guys, you're not going to get so many opportunities like that. I'm serious. Yeah, go ahead. A second.
So you talked a lot about blueprinting. What is your favorite thing or favorite tool to use of how you actually do that?
Honestly, I'm old school. I would say pencil and paper, but I use a Mac now. But it's mostly, what I'll start with is going to the interview and kind of asking the questions. And then I like diagrams a lot. So I'll use like something like OmniGraffle just to kind of, work out a flow. And so when I first start doing it is I understand like, what's your main source of attributes? It's usually HR in some kind of directory. So I start from there and I'll kind of diagram both together. And then I just start, asking about the main attributes and then just kind of creating a flow of where that attribute comes from. Like where does it start from? Where does it end? And I usually just kind of map all that out in flows. Then I sit down with people and go over, does this make sense? Does this make sense? Is there anything else that you see in here that might not work, right? And then I really push hard to try and find, because it's literally every there, that Perl script that somebody wrote that's syncing stuff because it's always there. But yeah, just OmniGraffle, just kind of laying out the diagram. Most people are visual, so it helps to kind of see it. So, anybody else? One more. Or two more. There's a guy down there too.
If you could give one piece of advice to a Padawan, what would it be?
Quit now. No, honestly, it's different now, right? I would say try and be curious, right? Ask, for me, I was always a big picture thinker. So understanding where something fits into the grand scheme helped you understand the limitations of a current product or something like that or whatever. So just try and absorb as much as you can. Shameless plug, join ID Pro, because you can get around other professionals to kind of ask them and just kind of glean some of that knowledge. Right? So in the very beginning, you just want to soak in as much as you possibly can. And then with that, find something that you actually love. It's a big little industry, right? There's a lot of stuff that you can do. You can do access management, you can do governance, you can do administration, you can do federation. There's all these kind of things that you can specialize in. But I would say look at all of them first, find one that you really like, and then dive deep. because it's harder to dive deep into one and then you want to come back and go across. So just take time and just kind of learn it all. Cool.
Last question.
Last question. What's up, man?
Okay, so about project management, we were talking about that. How do you deal with like agile project management? Like you said, you got to plumb everything out. You got to know where the bathroom's at. But what do you deal with like, okay, well, we don't know exactly where the bathroom is going to be at later on.
So I'm a believer that you can do agile in these projects. You have to do a little bit of waterfall in the beginning. Just because, depending on where you are, there are some basic foundational things that need to be there because it's really hard to backport and kind of tear those down. But in the case that you don't know some of those things, you can still break it up into kind of like mini sprints. So do like a nice gathering process in the beginning, right? Pretend like you're going through waterfall, try and collect all the requirements that you can and say, okay, we look at this, and then start breaking it into buckets and then start going through there, right? Once you actually start to implementation, if you do that in chunks, it makes it easier to when, if you do find something that's later, you haven't done a whole lot of it yet, so you're not tearing down a whole bunch of stuff. It's like, oh crap, yeah, we did say that we need to, there is this other Active Directory because we did this merger and we forgot about it because we kind of just put it over there and we only sync once a month. Yeah, that brings in identities too, right? So it's like, okay, well, when we were doing our provisioning and going through, we're only doing a couple applications, so now it's not that bad to bring in those identities, right? So it's a little bit of do like a little bit of pre-work and kind of get as much as you can and then like kick in your Agile from there. Because trying to start it from the beginning and also please understand that Agile doesn't mean you don't have requirements, right? That's not what that means. It's like, oh, we're doing Agile, we don't need to know anything. No, you do, right? Agile just means that you don't have to set a huge plan in the beginning. You can just say, look, here's what we know. We'll take this chunk and we'll start working on it and build it from there. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much, David.